Today is Thursday, October 19th. We'll tell you about the promises and warnings President Biden offered in the Middle East and what American intelligence has now said about that explosion at a Gaza hospital. Also, the confession that brought an end to a notorious missing persons case and a historic multi-billion-dollar plan to improve America's electric grid. Plus, why more couples are signing prenups, what big update just came to ChatGPT, and which foods are about to become trendy. The experts share their predictions. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Biden is already back in the U.S. after spending only about 7.5 hours in the Middle East. During his short trip, he both promised the U.S. will always support Israel and offered a word of caution for the American ally. In terms of his support, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Biden's visit deeply, deeply moving. But Biden also pleaded with Israeli leaders not to let their rage blur their clarity about their objectives, basically to not let Hamas's attack spiral into a broader regional conflict. And he made it clear the U.S. is not against the people of Gaza. As he said, quote, the vast majority of Palestinians are not Hamas. Biden pressed Israeli officials about their overall strategy for Gaza, like what their plan is for after the war. To that, Israeli War Cabinet members said they aren't there yet and are just now focused on avenging the deadly attack on their soil by eliminating the Hamas terror group. Biden didn't push back, but said if Israel is going to keep getting international support, it will have to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Biden did announce a little bit of progress when it comes to humanitarian aid. He spoke on the phone with Egypt's president, who agreed to reopen his country's sealed border crossing with Gaza, and Israel agreed it would let it happen. Biden says food, water, and medicine could begin rolling in by tomorrow. President Biden was originally supposed to meet with other Mideast leaders during his trip, but that meeting got canceled in the wake of that devastating explosion at a hospital in Gaza, which stirred up some anti-Israel and anti-American sentiment in several countries across the region. But Biden did address the hospital blast while in Israel. He says American intelligence is backing up what Israeli officials have been saying, that they were not behind it. And so far, all the data points to a failed rocket launch by militants tied to Hamas. American intelligence officials have cited missile activity, overhead imagery, video, and images of the incident. Israeli leaders have also presented their own additional evidence, which Americans say they're working to corroborate. President Biden plans to deliver an Oval Office address tonight with updates on the wars in both Israel and Ukraine. And we'll bring you a recap tomorrow morning. Well, of course, the situation in the Middle East has been emotional for people all over the world. And that was especially evident this week at the U.S. Capitol. A huge group of protesters gathered inside and outside of the Capitol complex yesterday, calling for a ceasefire. One of the groups behind the protest said there were thousands of people who showed up. Officers with Capitol Police say they were creating a disturbance, and they ended up closing roads outside the Capitol. Police departments from surrounding areas were also called in to help. By the end of the day, more than 300 protesters had been arrested, and a handful were charged with assaulting officers. That follows a similar protest this week outside the White House that also ended with dozens of arrests. France is on high alert over a series of security scares this week. Just yesterday, French officials evacuated several airports in response to bomb threats and sightings of unattended luggage. The Palace of Versailles was also evacuated for the third time in less than a week over similar security concerns. And the Louvre Museum had to be cleared out over the weekend. The large threats against big public places have been cleared without any issues. But France has reported dozens of individual anti-Semitic attacks ever since Hamas's ambush in Israel. So the French government increased its threat alert to the highest level, prompting more police and military deployments across the country. Nearly 20 years after an American teenager disappeared on a senior class trip, and her family is finally getting answers about what happened to her. This is a case that inspired countless hours of cable TV programming, more than half a dozen books, multiple Law & Order episodes, a Lifetime movie, and at least one stage production. We're talking about the disappearance of Natalee Holloway. And yesterday, the man who has long been considered the prime suspect in the case confessed. Joran van der Sloot admitted to killing Holloway on a beach in Aruba after she refused his advances, then dumped her body into the sea. The confession came as he pleaded guilty to extorting Holloway's mother. He apparently tried to get $250,000 from Beth Holloway in exchange for information about where to find her daughter's body. Vandersloot is already serving a 28-year prison sentence for another student's murder. And now he's also been sentenced 20 years for charges of extortion and wire fraud, which he will serve at the same time. All right, looks like the U.S. House is getting together once again today to vote on a speaker, since once again, Congressman Jim Jordan did not get enough votes from his colleagues. In fact, even more Republicans voted against him yesterday than on Tuesday. But he's still the GOP nominee. And Jordan shows no signs of dropping out of this race, saying he plans to keep working on his fellow lawmakers. But some of them are trying to find another way to move forward, looking for options, even if it means working with Democrats, who so far have just been rallying behind their own candidate. For now, though, there's a speaker vote set for this afternoon. And remember, the House, and therefore Congress, can't do much of anything until a speaker is chosen. Stay tuned. All right, we have much more news for you still coming up. But first, a quick break for our sponsor. You've probably heard the headlines before where there's a big fight over a celebrity's estate after they pass away. And while we may not have as many assets as famous celebrities, we all, of course, want to help secure the future for our loved ones and keep the process straightforward for them as much as possible. Especially now that I have a child, my husband and I recently decided to complete our first will, and we were pleasantly surprised how simple it was with Trust and Will. Each will or trust is crafted to be state-specific and customized to your needs without having to spend thousands of dollars. I also appreciate bank-level encryption, and although we did not need to use it, Trust and Will also offers live customer support through phone, chat, and email. Trust and Will has earned an overall rating of excellent with thousands of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. No wonder hundreds of thousands of families and counting, including mine, have used their expertise. So gain peace of mind today with Trust and Will. Get 10% off plus free shipping of your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/newsworthy. That's 10% off and free shipping at trustandwill.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. This week, the U.S. Energy Department announced the largest federal investment ever in America's electric grid. $3.5 billion will go to nearly 60 projects around the country. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm says private partners have also promised billions. She says it's all necessary since the current grid is not equipped to handle all the new demand and withstand natural disasters, as we've seen recently with wildfires in Hawaii and California, and extreme temperatures in places like Texas. So these improvements should make the grid more resilient. And the Energy Department says it's also going to make it greener, working toward the goal of having 100% clean energy by 2035. Money for these improvements is coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law that passed in Congress 2 years ago, and even more funding could be announced soon. ChatGPT got a big upgrade this week. The world-famous AI chatbot can now search the web. So that means ChatGPT will be able to give users up-to-date information. Whereas, until now, it's been limited to the training data that was cut off before September 2021. The new feature is now available on both the web and mobile versions for people who pay a monthly subscription. Also starting this week, ChatGPT can respond with images, similar to what people have been able to do on Bing and Meta. Though for ChatGPT's version, the image generator has only been rolled out to certain users in beta mode. One of the most popular online platforms is offering a new way to get more news. YouTube rolled out a new immersive watch page on mobile. And with that, you can see videos with newspaper icons on them. And when you open one, you'll see below long-form videos, live streams, podcasts, and shorts from credible mainstream sources. The watch page is rolling out on mobile now and will move to other formats in the future. The whole thing sets YouTube aside from other tech giants that have recently decided not to promote mainstream news. For example, X no longer shows headlines on articles shared, though X is not shunning news completely. In fact, the company made a big change to its crowdsourced fact-checking tool this week called Community Notes. It now says volunteer contributors must include sources on every note they write. This all comes as X has been criticized over misinformation spreading about the war in the Middle East. And other social networks have also noticed a need for more moderation in the face of the conflict. Like TikTok hired more people who speak Arabic and Hebrew to help moderate the site. And Meta says it removed nearly 800,000 pieces of content. Window seats might become even more popular on planes soon, at least for people flying United. The airline announced it's changing its boarding process to what it used to have a few years ago in an effort to be more efficient. So, starting a week from today, people with window seats will get to board first, followed by middle seats, and then the aisles. Well, after first and business class passengers anyway. United expects to save about 2 minutes in boarding time, since people won't have to stand up to let others into their row. If you're traveling with the whole family, though, don't worry. United says multiple customers on the same reservation will still be allowed to board together. Trending foods have really been taking off in recent years. We saw it with the bread-making craze of 2020, the charcuterie boards of 2021, matcha in 2022, and then this year, a whole lot of alcohol-free cocktails and snack-filled dinners. So, what's next? Grocer Whole Foods has worked with foragers, buyers, and culinary experts to come up with its 2024 trends forecast. It predicts we're going to move away from fake meat replacements and return to actual plants as ingredients, like mushrooms and legumes. It also foresees a lot of gourmet ramen, single-serve desserts, food made with peppers from around the world, and clean caffeine options like crash-free cold brew. But of course, there will likely be some food surprises, too. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, this episode is brought to you by AG1. I gave AG1 a try because, as a busy parent and business owner, I'm always on the lookout for things that are both good for me and are convenient. So I was really intrigued by AG1, and I actually reached out to them wanting to partner, and I've been really happy with my experience all around. I drink AG1 before I eat or drink anything else, and it makes me feel ready to take on the day. AG1 replaces a lot of other supplements, including a daily multivitamin, minerals, pre- and probiotics for gut health, adaptogens, and a greens blend, all in one scoop of powder mixed with water. And yes, I like some ice and a splash of lemon juice, and then I'm all set. I even love the little bottle AG1 sends with the powder because it's easy to take on the go if things are especially hectic or busy one morning. My toddler even knows I have it every morning and now refers to it as either mama's drink or green drink, which is pretty adorable. So if you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. Okay, now back to Thing to Know Thursday. More than ever now in America, tying the knot might mean signing on the dotted line. New data from the market research firm Harris Poll shows half of U.S. adults are at least open to signing a prenup, a number that is up from 42% just last year. Of course, we're talking about the type of legal contract between soon-to-be spouses that lays out how they'll deal with money, both during a marriage and after a divorce if one happens. Prenups were once only seen as something the rich and famous do. But now, younger generations, think Gen Z and millennials, are especially embracing them. Axios says perhaps it's because Americans are getting married later in life and have had time to build up their own financial lives, good or bad. About 20% of married couples actually have agreements in place now, compared to only 3% of marriages back in 2010. All right, thank you so much for listening today, and a special thank you to our newsworthy insiders who help support the show. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.